And now back to our top story, the government's plans to give Australian manufacturers more of a play in the resources boom. Well, will it work? Capral is the country's largest maker of aluminium structures for the residential and commercial market and a member of Peak Body Manufacturing Australia. Well, since 2008, Capral's battled a rising dollar, cyclical lows. It's lost almost 40% of its workforce. It has been busy restructuring and it's no stranger to foreign import competition. Chief Executive and Managing Director Phil Jobe joins me now. Phil, welcome to the programme.
Thanks, Dickie.
Tell me, should manufacturers feel a lot better off about these Australian industry participation plans we've been hearing about?
Well, I think it's a positive. We should be pleased with anything that helps, and I think we should take some comfort from today's announcements.
Well, Minister Greg Combet said there'd be increased scrutiny for particularly large private resource projects over $2 billion that may lose their tariff concession on imports if they don't use one of these Australian industry participation plan. But I understood these big projects that actually got these, want tariff concessions, already had to comply with an Australian industry plan. I mean, is there a lot of gaming that goes on there? Is that what we're saying?
Well, that's the view from a lot of the big companies, I guess mainly the steel companies. They believe there has been gaming, and hopefully this will tighten it up and we'll see some concrete results out of it.
What sort of gaming goes on? Because you've looked quite closely at these sorts of areas, haven't you?
Well, it depends on how you define local content. We believe it should be tradable goods. To give a sort of a smaller example, if you're using local catering and things like that, should that really be classed as local content? I think we're really
So what you're saying is that a resources company could be using supply of local catering for their workers as the Australian element rather than steel products?
Yeah, what we're really interested in is the tradable goods, steel, aluminium, product like that. That's what's quite important.
I guess one thing this could do is make things a bit more transparent, so you stop companies doing things like ensuring that the bids happen for stuff that only suits one supplier, you know, specific types of pipes or whatever.
Yes, I think breaking it down so that Australian producers get a fair go at tendering, I think that's a positive step.
Phil, I heard an apocryphal story, maybe an apocryphal story, but I heard it from a pretty cast-iron source, that early in the boom, a couple of the big multinationals met with government and told them that the Chinese buyers of ore were saying, look, we'll buy your ore, but the quid pro quo is that you will then use our steel products in your mining services. And they told the government that, you know, it was no skin off their nose, but perhaps the government should know about it. That was quite early on in the boom. Are what we're seeing now, is that too little, too late?
Well, that may well have happened. It may well still be happening. Look, Australian manufacturing definitely needs to do some positive things, and hopefully this will create more product for Australian industry. And if it does, I think it's about implementation, and you know, I think if it's well done and people are serious about it, it'll be good for Australia.
It should have an impact, presumably, on steel imports. Is it going to have any impact on Capral as an aluminium manufacturer?
I'd love to say a big yes. The reality is, in mining, they tend not to use a lot of aluminium.
Why is that?
Well, if you have aluminium and steel and it clashes, you get spark. And if there's methane gas around, that's not a good combination. So tend not to have a lot of aluminium in mining, unfortunately. OK,
but one of the issues you are obviously very worried about, and it's related, is the issue of anti-dumping. You lost, yes, I think, more than a third of your market to Chinese imports in the past 10 years. That must translate to jobs. How have the Chinese done that?
Well, I think a lot of your audience would be really amazed at just what is happening in Australian industry and cheap imported product. I'm a firm believer if we lose work because we're not genuinely competitive, that's fine, that's business. But there's a lot of product coming into Australia from China, which is heavily subsidised by their government. And you've got to remember...
And we know that?
And we know that. The USA have had a case and proved that. Canada have had a case and proved that. We've had a case and proved that. But under the laws, as they exist in Australia, we're very anemic. We just don't get the same results.
So what we're talking about is the Chinese supplying cheap, subsidised aluminium, yes, to the equivalent of Capral in China.
Yes, and they bring it in. One of the things people don't fully understand is that the yuan to Australian dollar has moved by 50% in the last decade. If Australia was to manipulate its currency by 20%, we could do a whole lot better too, but that's what the Chinese do.
Why don't we go to the WTO about something like this?
Well, you can, but and other countries do, and there are ways you can run these court cases, but Australia in 2005 recognised China as a market economy. One of the unintended consequences of that is that our anti-dumping measures and options were severely limited. Now, that is causing massive problems right now.
Because you had a case which you took, and the government actually, as I understand it, supported your case, said there was a case of anti-dumping.
Yes.
But what was the remedy?
Well, we got between 0 and 6%, whereas the same cases for the same product in the USA and in Canada received over 30%.
In terms of the duty on the imported good?
On these dumped products.
Yeah.
So it says there's a problem with Australia's anti-dumping regime, and we need to do something about it.
And that's all because we recognise China as a market economy?
That, in large measure, yes.
Does Canada, does the EU recognise China?
No, they don't. No, they don't. And I don't think anyone believes China is a full market economy. So we need to find answers to that, and we need to do it quickly.
So the government has actually put through, I think, 3 or 4 tranches of reforms on anti-dumping. But what else needs to be done from your point of view?
Well, we are pleased that the government is acting, and we're pleased with the support from the unions and Paul Howes and others. But and they're good measures, but it doesn't go to the core of the problem. And the problem is, even if you do get dumping duties in Australia, seems like the exporters find ways around them. So there's massive circumvention of duties. So we need to do a lot more compliance. We need to keep people honest. And then we need to find ways that we can handle this currency manipulation in our anti-dumping laws. And until we do, Australia is going to be really suffering.
Phil Jobe, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Okay, thank you, Dickie.